I left my wife when she needed me most, and now I'd give anything to go back. The deepest silence I have ever known isn't the quiet of a lonely house, it's the absence of a future I threw away, a future I abandoned the moment the doctor spoke the word cancer. I'm Ben, 42 now, and I was supposed to be the pillar, the shelter, the one who stayed. Instead, when Clara, my wife, needed me to be a man, I proved myself to be nothing more than a frightened child. I walked out of our shared life just as hers was collapsing, and now I'm standing here, years later, rich in everything but peace. The successful life I built without her is nothing but a hollow monument to my own failure. Our marriage, before the diagnosis, had the quiet, comfortable rhythm of any decade-long partnership. I was an architect, relentlessly driven, always chasing the next commission, the bigger project, the higher salary. Clara, 40, was a brilliant curator at a local gallery, possessed of a luminous calm that centered my frantic world. She was the one who remembered birthdays, who made our home feel like a sanctuary, whose easy laugh was the background music to my often stressed existence. I always rationalized my emotional distance. I told myself that my work, my obsession with providing security, was my way of showing love. I was building the fortress, while she was filling it with warmth. But my constant focus was outward. I measured my worth by the depth of my bank account and the respect of my colleagues, not by the quality of the connection I nurtured at home. When she tried to talk about feelings, about the silent erosion of intimacy, I would deflect, burying myself deeper in blueprints and deadlines. I mistook her quiet resilience for endless emotional capacity. What do you do when you realize the years you spent building a perfect fortress were just years spent ignoring the perfect garden inside? I see now that she carried the emotional weight of our relationship entirely on her own. She adjusted her light to accommodate my shadow. She never demanded I slow down, she just kept pace, quietly managing the household, my moods, and her own demanding career without ever complaint. My greatest failure wasn't in leaving her during the crisis, it was in allowing the fundamental structure of our marriage to rely entirely on her strength in the years leading up to it. I believed I was owed her support, always, simply because I was the one bringing in the bigger paycheck. The day the world changed was a Tuesday in early spring. Clara had gone in for what she thought was a routine checkup for a small lump she'd discovered. I was in a meeting, focused on securing a multi-million-dollar deal that felt, at that moment, like the most important thing in the universe. Her call was brief, her voice thin and high. Invasive ductal carcinoma, breast cancer, stage 2. The impact of the word was not immediate grief, but a cold, paralyzing terror. I didn't fear her death so much as I feared the disruption. The months of chemotherapy, the surgical recovery, the absolute commitment required. It wasn't a problem I could solve with money or a brilliant design. It demanded my presence, my emotional availability, my complete, sustained sacrifice of self. It demanded the one thing I had always refused to give, the complete surrender of my own control. Clara, conversely, reacted with a quiet, powerful determination. She absorbed the information, asked clinical questions, and immediately started planning. She was the fighter, I was the one collapsing on the inside. I watched her cut her hair short before the chemo could take it, organize her treatment schedule, and research clinical trials with a focused intensity that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. She was facing mortality head-on, I was looking for the nearest exit. My role, initially, was the required one. I went to appointments, held her hand during painful biopsies, and absorbed the endless flood of frightening information. But the truth was, I was dying inside. The constant presence of sickness, the fragility of her body, the draining, soul-crushing exhaustion of the chemotherapy, it didn't bring out my strength, it exposed my profound weakness. I couldn't stand the smell of the hospital, I couldn't bear to see her fragile and nauseous. I resented the way the illness had violently seized control of our life, dragging my carefully ordered existence into chaos. My work became my sanctuary, my escape hatch. I started staying later and later at the office, using the urgency of the new project as a shield. I told myself I was handling the financial burden, the practical side. But I knew the truth. I was running from the pain in her eyes, running from the responsibility I was obligated to shoulder. I was physically present but emotionally 1,000 miles away, a ghost in my own home. The breaking point came 6 months into treatment. Clara was at her lowest, battling persistent nausea and extreme fatigue. She was vulnerable, frail, utterly dependent. That week, I received an offer for the job I had always coveted, director of design for a major firm on the West Coast, a dream role with an unbelievable salary bump. The interview process had been discreetly handled during the initial months of her diagnosis, a shameful secret I kept hidden like a weapon. The job required an immediate relocation, a clean break, a total restart. It was the ultimate escape. The universe, or perhaps my own warped sense of self-preservation, had handed me the perfect out, a beautiful, gilded door leading far away from the sick room, the fear, and the responsibility. The rationalizations came fast and cold, a flood of self-justification that washed away my conscience. I couldn't handle this, I would only drag her down with my resentment. She needs a professional caretaker, not a crumbling emotional wreck like me. The money from this new job will ensure she has the best care, the best doctors, that is my true contribution. The biggest lie I told myself was that leaving was the kindest thing I could do. I was saving my career, I was saving my sanity, I was saving myself from the terrifying proximity of mortality. I chose a Tuesday evening, the same day as her diagnosis, to drop the bomb. I didn't yell or argue, I was clinical, detached, reading from a script I'd rehearsed in my head for weeks. I said I was emotionally drained, that I couldn't be the partner she needed, that I was accepting the job and moving across the country. I promised financial support, health coverage, everything but the one thing she needed, me. I told her she deserved better than the wreckage I had become. The lack of protest from her was the most terrifying thing of all. There were no tears, no dramatic pleas. She simply turned her head toward the window, her face pale and drawn from the chemo, and simply nodded. Her silence was a deeper, more profound condemnation than any scream could have been. In that moment, I realized I hadn't just broken a promise, I had shattered her faith in human decency. I was so consumed by my own fear and self-pity that I didn't even recognize the strength in her silent acceptance. I walked out 2 days later. The air in the new city was cleaner, the light brighter, and the pressure of the illness was instantly gone. I felt a surge of professional exhilaration, a giddy sense of freedom. I had successfully escaped the inescapable. I looked forward, never looking back at the woman I abandoned, frail and alone, at the absolute lowest point of her life. What would you do? Choose the immediate pain of abandonment, or stay and risk your own complete emotional breakdown? My choice was clear, cold, and utterly unforgivable. My success was immediate and profound. The new job was everything I had dreamed of, challenging, rewarding, and validating. I quickly moved up the corporate ladder, earning the quiet respect of my peers. I had the penthouse overlooking the Pacific, the high-end sports car, the flawless, success-driven life I had relentlessly pursued. I was Ben, the architect who could build anything except a life with substance. But the freedom was hollow. The beautiful penthouse felt cold, the vast windows showing me nothing but my own isolated reflection. I dated, meeting stunning, successful women who admired my title and my lifestyle, but I could never connect. Every casual relationship felt thin and brittle, lacking the deep, quiet knowledge that only years of shared struggle and quiet commitment can build. The guilt was not a loud accusation, it was a slow, meticulous corrosion. It started as a tiny knot in my stomach whenever I saw a pink ribbon, or heard the phrase, in sickness and in health. It grew into a constant companion, ensuring that every professional victory was tainted. When I closed a massive deal, I didn't feel pride, I felt the searing shame of knowing that the woman I promised to protect was battling for her life alone. I was consumed by the haunting image of Clara, pale and silent, nodding her acceptance of my betrayal. I tried to use money to atone. I made sure her medical bills were always paid, her finances secured, sending anonymous, large transfers of funds that she never acknowledged. It was a pathetic attempt to buy back my peace of mind, an offering of blood money to my own conscience. It never worked. Money couldn't buy me back those 6 months of shared dread, those sleepless nights, those appointments where she needed my hand to hold, not my bank statement to settle. I found myself obsessing over her. I checked her social media, using proxies and fake accounts, desperate for any sign of her state. I needed to know she was recovering, surviving, thriving, because if she failed, my guilt would become insurmountable. I needed her to be okay so I could maintain the lie that my leaving hadn't been fatal. After 3 years of living in this gilded cage, the true hammer blow fell. I was scrolling through LinkedIn, a purely professional exercise, when I saw the update. It wasn't on her page, which was quiet and professional, but on a mutual friend's feed. There was a photo. Clara, radiant, looking healthier and more beautiful than I had ever seen her. She was smiling, laughing, holding hands with a man I didn't recognize, a kind-looking, steady man with warm eyes and a comfortable stance. The caption spoke of their recent engagement, their shared passion for a new conservation project, and the strength Clara had found, after her battle. The sight of her, not just recovered but thriving without me, was 1,000 times more devastating than any image of her sickness. The knowledge that she had not only survived the abyss I abandoned her in but had used that adversity to find a deeper, stronger self, and a better partner, crushed me. The man in the photo wasn't an architect, he was a park ranger, a man of quiet, undeniable strength. He was the man she needed during her crisis, the grounded, emotionally present partner I could never be. She had found a man whose strength wasn't measured in concrete and glass, but in patience and compassion. The finality of it was suffocating. I hadn't just lost her, I had become irrelevant to her survival and her subsequent happiness. My departure had not been her ruin, it had been the painful crucible that forged her freedom. The life she built was clean, unburdened by my ego and my emotional fragility. I realized that my self-preserving escape was the single most damaging choice of my life. I would give anything to go back to that Tuesday evening, to walk away from that job offer, to tear up the blueprints, and simply hold her hand and tell her that nothing else mattered. I would trade the penthouse for the hospital ward, the luxury car for the quiet solitude of her sick room, just to prove I was the man she deserved. But that man is gone. Now, I look at my reflection, the image of a successful, 42-year-old executive, and I see a hollow fraud. My biggest success came at the cost of the only true love I ever knew, and the bitterest irony is that I abandoned her when she needed me most, only to find that the person who truly needed saving was me. I am forever trapped outside the warm glow of the life I should have fought for, watching her thrive from the cold, lonely distance of my self-made success. What do you think? Is it ever possible to atone for a betrayal this deep, or is the realization of the mistake the only punishment you can ever truly earn? If this emotional story of regret, cowardice, and the true cost of self-preservation resonated with you, please hit the like button, share this profound narrative, and subscribe to follow my haunted journey.